Good afternoon, Patriots, and welcome to the 145th audio chat in the QNewsPatriot Rumble Channel series. I am the QNewsPatriot, joined again today by Patriot and gubernatorial candidate for Vermont, Kevin Hoyt. My name is SGanon. One of the main drivers for the Great Awakening worldwide that we're seeing play out in the Western world is the realization that there has been an out-and-out war, a state-sanctioned industrial-scale operation against the children of all of we the people. Mr. Hoyt himself has a very interesting personal story along these same lines, as well as more than 10 years of research into this very issue. And today we're here to paint out a picture to name the gears and the wheels on the state-sanctioned machine of human and child trafficking. It's my honor to have him back to the show. Mr. Hoyt, thank you for joining us again.
Wow. Thanks for having me back, SG. What a ride, huh? Crazy stories.
You know, it really is. And I have to say, Kevin, this particular issue borders on the really difficult parts of the Great Awakening. A lot of people come around to the ideas that the elections are captured or tampered with. They can get around the idea that cartels traffic human beings around the rest of the planet, but not right here in our own communities. What is very difficult to come around to, the realization I think that a lot of people are slow to make, is that their own government is not only not protecting them against these types of activities, but is actively facilitating them. Before we get into the nuts and bolts of our discussion today, though, since it has been a little while since my audience has gotten to enjoy our conversation, do you care to give us a recap of Kevin Hoyt and sort of get into your story along these same lines?
Well, sure. I guess I'm a regular guy, just like everybody watching this. I successfully avoided religion and politics my entire life, like most sane, rational people. And then I reached a point where, I couldn't afford to live in the state that I love with the people that I love. So I threw my hat into the political arena. Maybe I am insane. Gave up my dream career to pursue this stuff because I love you guys. And I'm sick and tired of watching my friends and neighbors suffer and die. So I started looking again. I ran for chief goober, like you said, gubernatorial. Ran for governor of Vermont State 3 different times. The people in Vermont don't even know who I am. It started out, I guess, with a little tiny election audit where we can prove 60 to 70% fraud and trace it back at least to 1975 and the corruption. I thought that was a big deal, SG, like massive election fraud. I thought that was the biggest thing. And again, it feels about this big now because all these rabbit holes that we go down to, I think this is the great uniter, the unifier. It comes down to human trafficking. And again, your Congress is involved, your courts are involved. They control the opioid epidemic. And the things we're learning about our government are really, really bad. The scale of this lie is epic, and we're completely surrounded by it. So essentially, again, I don't want to govern anybody, but I want to govern this out of control system and the things that we're finding, the level of corruption and theft and fraud, and again, child trafficking is more than I'm going to put up with. So it has nothing to do with elections, win, lose, or draw. I know about this now. So I'm kind of stuck. I have to warn you guys. I have to tell you, and I have to do everything in my power to stop it. So we found out how the state is legally stealing our children. And I've got an issue with that, SG.
Absolutely. And I think everyone on this broadcast would probably take the same issue, Mr. Hoyt. For the audience out there, just to drive home the gravity of what Mr. Hoyt has uncovered that we're about to get into here in a moment, there is an upcoming court date. As I understand it, it's within the next 30 days where they will attempt to throw Mr. Hoyt in jail for speaking out on these exact same issues. And with that, Kevin, I'll yield back to you to begin our discussion.
Well, and that's because I think again, the assassination attempts on my life, they've cut my brake lines, they've issued illegal warrants and court orders, and I was arrested and force injected. And again, they come after your family, they come after your friends. These guys don't play fair. And anyone out there who stood up, you know what I'm talking about. Because if you stand up, they're going to come, and the taller you stand, the harder they come. So I guess I've painted my own target on my back, and I'm proud of that target, and I wouldn't change a thing because some things are worth fighting for. Some things are worth dying for. And I think our children are a big part of this. That's the underlying thing. I think it's finally hitting mainstream media now, right? It's finally from the Super Bowl halftime show and our music to the warrants for Hollywood to, Ali Carter and LA and the tunnels and the things that everybody's talking about now. The idea of cannibalism or child sacrifice or bloodletting. I never imagined myself in a million years talking about these things, especially in a public forum. But it's not just, you know, third world countries. This is the White House. This is the skyscrapers in New York City. And this is your little podunk town. And it's not just your elected officials. Again, it's, people that live two farms down from you. It's people you go to church with. These are Satanists, Luciferians. Again, crazy conversations. But I don't think we're crazy. I think the world we live in, the one we find ourselves in, is absolutely insane. And now we're trying to navigate our way through this. So I don't even know where to start, SG. Do you want me to go into screen share? We can just go start blowing things through?
Please.
Okay, and again, I love naming names. So I'm going to ramble through this, and unless you're a local like me, I'm going to go way too fast. You're not going to keep up. But I think I can connect the dots for you guys because it's the same exact thing in your town. So we're going to go, again, we're going to start back in the mid 80s in little tiny Bennington, Vermont. Make sure this popped up for you, SG. Can you see my buddy Rob?
Rob Woolmington looks like potentially a lawyer of some kind.
A lawyer. This is my ex-town lawyer. So this guy was the lawyer for Bennington, my hometown. And again, Merrill Bent is his business partner. That's actually a woman. But again, Wilmington, Bent, Dewey, Screwham, and Howe. Again, these are all major players, some of the biggest lawyers in our town, right? So Rob Wilmington, again, another important key after he left his job as town lawyer and his business partner took over. He went on to run Vermont Digger, which is the largest media publication in my state. So I just want to show the how far their reach goes. All right. So we go a little farther. EIN numbers. Do you know what an EIN is, SG?
Indeed, a number assigned to entities that generate essentially tax, and it's a way to track them and hold them to account and potentially go back and audit if necessary, correct?
Right. This is again a unique, there you go, unique individual federal identification number for your business. And they can't match for any reasons, especially if they're different tax bases. So if I'm going to go back to this guy, Rob Wilmington, when he was town lawyer, got together with Judge James Colvin. And what they did is they set up a whole bunch of matching EIN numbers. So we essentially live in a society of shell companies. These are make up business, make believe businesses for embezzlement and money laundering and tax evasion. Again, I'm a reporting party for our multi state federal RICO investigation. RICO is short for racketeering. A lot of this bank fraud, tax fraud, it's all kind of connected. So, again, this is Rob Wilmington. You see in the center of the screen. This over here is Merrill Bent. That's his business partner we talked about. Right there it is. Again, they run the media. They're standing here in front of 507 Main Street, which is important. This is one of the key lawmakers in Vermont state. His name is David Silver. Um, and again, if you look at public records for the Samuel H. Blackmer Law Library, this is a law library in my hometown. I've never heard of it. I've never seen it. No one in my town has because it doesn't exist, right? So, and when Judge Colvin and Rob Wilmington were setting up all these EINs, and we're going to get into that, they also came up with the Samuel H. Blackmer Law Library. So if you look at the main address right here, it's 507 Main Street. Well, if you were to go to 507 Main Street in Bennington, Vermont, here it is. You zoom in, and what you're going to find is the law office of David Silver. Bar Sternberg and Moss. Again, we have a horrendous water problem, PFOA, pollutants problem, multi-bazillion dollar settlement. The guys that argued that was David Silver and Rob Wilmington. That was the two sides of the battle. Again, they're both playing for the same thing. Rob Wilmington's last known working address was the Samuel H. Blackmer Law Library. This guy right here that's circled is named Mike Munson. He actually works for my prosecutor. He used to work in the prosecutor's office. And now he's over here with David Silver. But do you got SG, do you think these guys know they work for a library? Do you think they pay taxes as a library? Because again, I think they do. And this is why we were removed. This goes all the way to the Secretary of State, not only responsible for elections, but for businesses, for these EIN numbers, and they all match. And we're going to get into that. This is Merrill Bent's husband, Jared Bianchi. Again, they always have last names, different last names, so you can't track it unless you're local. But Merrill Bent is the prosecutor in the human trafficking ring #2 up in central Vermont, and this is her husband that actually is coming after me. This is the lawyer in my case. They made it a crime to report crimes by our officials. So Jared works down here with my prosecutors. We've connected this through law enforcement, the prosecutors, and the judges, and we're going to get into that a little more. So again, EINs, unique individual numbers, are not supposed to match for any reason. This is the Gary Forrest Sheriff's Association. So again, Gary Forrest he was my local sheriff for I don't know how many decades. But this EIN number that you're seeing right here, 8060, interesting number. So Gary started it. The treasurer, his right-hand man, was Chad Schmidt, who was the new sheriff. After Gary left, Chad took over. Here's an article with Chad Schmidt. This is my Bennington County sexting sheriff. When we were going after him, there's a lot of young addicts that have disappeared that I believe have been murdered. There's a lot of sexual debauchery, a lot of things that are going on. And this article that I'm showing you here under Crime and Justice was actually an article by Vermont Digger. What people don't know is Rob Wilmington blackmailed my sheriff. They wrote this article and then they blackmailed him. They said, hey, for $300,000, we won't print the rest of the story. Chad paid. We didn't get the rest of the story. So this is these guys just blackmailing and going after each other. There's no loyalty among thieves. They do it all the time. But Chad was the treasurer for the Gary Forrest Sheriff Association. When Gary left, Chad became sheriff. I'm the reporting party. The charges on the BOLO, that's a statewide issue, law enforcement, be on the lookout for my sheriff, included human trafficking, drug trafficking, murder, and obstruction. I'm the guy that reported him. I told the feds where he was, so they can't lie to me about this. This guy's been missing for about 4 years now. I tell you, he moved to Tennessee just like everybody else. They moved, retired, resigned. I think something else is happening. I think that's Rico. Want to get into this too. This is one of our sheriffs, Roger Marcoux, up north. I've tried to track Roger down. Again, here's a solicitation letter for the Vermont Sheriff's Association. And this didn't go to everybody. This just went to our elderly. That bothered me. So I went up and tried to find Sheriff Roger Marcoux as well. Among the missing, we can't ever seem to find these guys. It's pretty incredible stuff. But here we go, 8060, the Vermont Sheriff's Association. Every single person in Vermont watching this, you have a sheriff. They're a member of an illegal organization. The Vermont Sheriff's Association, 8060, matches the Mount Anthony Preservation Society, 8060. This is the nonprofit that's owned by Judge James Colvin. Mr. Colvin just passed away recently. I got another friend, a fellow deposed witness, federally deposed witness. They had him on the ropes too, trying to put him in jail for trying to report these truths. The charges against him were dismissed about a month ago, and Judge Colvin literally died within the hour after those charges were dismissed. So again, the Mount Anthony Preservation Society is like an umbrella company, SG. This is how it works. And then underneath that, you've got all these other numbers. And what that is one for the senator, one for the judge, one for the sheriff. If I was a dirty cop and I wanted to pay you, the dirty senator, I can't just give you 50 grand. We'd get caught. But I can send it through your nonprofit. Again, this is tax evasion. So that was just one. We got the Project Against Violent Encounters. This is for battered women. It's a great program, helped a lot of people. It's also an illegal business front for embezzlement. We got Bennington County Court Diversion, right? CRJ, we know that as. Again, illegal business front. This is incredible to me. This is where it gets really scary. The Bennington, and I circled the wrong one up here. That's the sheriff's. But you see the 847784. Here it is, 7784. All these came from the Cochran Law Firm, by the way, in LA, through a friend of mine, Rick Wright. Basically, they did the looking for us. Sorry, I gave you a split screen shot here, but that's the Mount Anthony Preservation Society and Bennington County Child Care Association. That's a key word. If you see association or trust, don't trust it. The Vermont Land Trust We should not be trusted. So we know this is Sunrise Daycare, and this is where it gets interesting. So here we go, Sunrise Family Resource Center. That is the Bennington County Child Care Association. It's got a matching EIN number with my judge. This is run by the Vermont Department of Children and Families. So now we have a child advocacy center run by the state. That's important when we have stories like this. We have the state taking children, taken, keyword, without any proof of abuse. And we're talking about, 1 in 4 families in America are involved with CPS right now. We have around 2,400 kids a month that disappear from state custody. Not just the child, but the paperwork disappears. And again, we're going to get into the drugs and the courts and how they use these to steal our children. It's pretty incredible. Have you seen this before, SG? I know you're on mute there. Have you seen this disclosure sheet from the FBI?
Indeed.
Okay, and most of your fans probably have too, and your followers. This isn't Kevin Hoyt. This isn't SG. This is the FBI. I think they were divided too, but the good FBI gave us all these logos. You see them all over the Pope and Disney, and this is all breaking now. But this one I have circled is kind of interesting because there's Sunrise Family Resource Center. Okay, and just to show you guys again, you got the 6-pointed star, which is pretty interesting too, or the 8, sorry. And out of all the symbols in the world for the sun, why would they use this one? I couldn't figure that out. Maybe people can call Cindy Tumeyer. There's your phone number and ask her. I went in and asked. That'll get you a no trespass order just for asking. Here's the logo again. If you zoom in on, this is all their donors. We can go through. There's Judge Wesley Mook, right? There's Judge Cohen. There's Judge everybody. By the way, when we were talking about the Samuel H. Blackmer Law Library, not only is it the law office of David Silver, who we pointed out, but if you go across town, you have another high-powered lawyer. That would be Judge Jonathan Cohen. Well, his office is also the Samuel H. Blackmer Law Library. Judge Wesley Mook, his office is the Samuel H. Blackmer Law Library, right? Judge James Colvin, he's the Samuel H. Blackmer Law Library. These guys aren't paying taxes. Pretty crazy stuff, but I think this is a bigger issue when it comes to talking about our children. Here's my sexting sheriff or one of his deputies. He was fired for beating up his wife. Again, at Sunrise Early Education. That's the matching EIN, pedophile symbol, the whole bit. 1986, that was a while ago. They covered up sexual misconduct with children at this advocacy center with a matching EIN with the pedophile symbol. Who's they? Well, that would be Wilmington, our town lawyer back then, Rob Wilmington, didn't want the town to get sued, and Rick Gauthier. Rick Gauthier back then was the chief of police. This is our law enforcement. These are guys that are supposed to help us. So again, that's the time Rob Wilmington left as town lawyer, gave that job to his business partner, and he went on to run the media, Vermont Digger. And then Rick Gauthier retired under controversy. He went on to run the Vermont Police Academy, where they did their recruitment and retention for the next 20 years. Guys are all interesting. We're jumping around a little bit. They say you're supposed to look at art, absorb it. How does it make you feel? I don't know how this makes you feel, SG, but I see a lot of torment, a lot of torture. I see a lot of symbolism. You've got what happens above, happens below, and the symbols from the demon hands. You got your
The inverted
pedophile
hands
logos
of Baal.
of Baal. You're exactly right. And again, you'll see the symbolism again. We've got the pedophile symbols. We got the 2 Masonic pillars. Looks like, has her heart been torn out? Looks like an eyeball floating. I don't know. Maybe somebody should ask the student, because this is student art that was found at Castleton University, right? Castleton, Vermont. That's Bernie Sanders' school, where Bernie does all of his rallies and fundraisers and all those things. This was hanging in the Fine Art Institute at Castleton University. When I discovered that, we disclosed it. We did a bunch of videos on this, on Bernie, on Voodoo Donuts. Within a month, the ex-dean of Castleton University was murdered. Still unsolved today. I'm looking at their police chief, to be honest. I'll be frank with people. So again, Vermont's suspicious death on the trail. They didn't even tell us who it was at first. It took a long time before we found out it was 77-year-old Honore Fleming. Shot in the head, died right? This is really incredible stuff. Same thing in the next town over. You see some symbols there with Castleton Governor's School. Here's Bernie, the real Bernie, by the way, not the guy you're seeing on TV. He's standing with Jim Mandel. Now, this guy's a pedophile. I can say that because we closed down his day camp. It's called Overcoming Barriers. You guys should check in your state too. I know it's in other states. It's up into Canada. This is where they sent Britney Spears' children, SG. When they took them away from Britney, they sent them to Vermont State. Nobody knew that with Jim Mandel.
Remarkable.
Again, we closed this camp down for human trafficking in January of 2021. Right now, Jim's the guy that ran it, but if you really want to know who the owner is, it goes back to a woman named Marjorie Slavic. This is a private judge. She's a family court commissioner out of California, out of LA. That's how Brittany's kids got over here. Again, Voodoo Donuts is another big one with these guys. But that's how we discovered JAMS, JAMS. Everybody needs to look into that one. You know it as arbitration. When you go to court, they don't want you to go to arbitration. They don't want you to go to court anymore. They're busy. So they send you through arbitration. That's a private judging system. So Judge Sontag in Bennington, Vermont, little tiny Bennington, excuse me, he's also Judge Sontag in Nevada, where his day rate was $35,000. So if I was a celebrity couple, I could go to Judge Sontag in Nevada. I skip to the head of the line. There's no waiting. There's no public. There's no media scrutiny. I get a judge's signature on the bottom. The problem is there's no such thing as a private judge. He's not licensed to practice in Nevada, and none of these guys are paying taxes. So that's JAMS arbitration. All 50 states, you have a member of JAMS. This is why they want to put me in jail, SG, for telling this stuff. And again, there's the day camp we closed down. They're not telling you why. I will. Just like all of our law enforcement right now. We've removed over 200 elected officials in the last 2 years. I say removed, they've resigned, retired, they're missing. Some of them got arrested, but not just for what they're telling you. These people are gone, right? So what's happening to them? I believe they're being federally indicted. I know my friend Mike Gill, the Pandora Papers, a good reference there. He thinks they're getting whacked. He thinks there's bad guys whacking back. I'm not a fad. I'm just telling you guys what I know. This is human trafficking ring number 2. This gentleman right here, Bill Humphreys, he put up a wanted poster for me. I heard everybody was saying he hated me. I didn't understand that. I don't know this man. Why would he hate me? So I started looking, and I know why, right? This is actually from another Digger article called Tarnished Badges, where we have a whole bunch of dirty cops. So this guy, Wild Bill Humphreys, William Humphreys, he's a 2-time convicted police chief. Twice serving alcohol to minors. Not once, but twice. In fact, he took one of their virginity, right? This guy regularly has his underage girlfriends pull people over in his constable car in Paulette, Vermont, where we have a cop, another cop, one of Bill's friends, has been impersonating an officer for 21 years. I mean, you can't even make this stuff up. It just goes on and on. But how do you pass a background check? How do you get a job as a 2-time convicted police chief? This would only happen in Vermont. And that's when you start climbing the ladder. Merrill Bent is the big guy, and then a gentleman named Robin Chestnut Tangerman. Robin's a Vermont House rep out of Rutland, Vermont. He's also a giant realtor. His business partner, Mr. McChesney, Lee McChesney, he was involved with the bust down in Coral Springs, Florida, with the New England Patriots owner, where they got him for prostitution. But Mr. McChesney at the time, 84 years old, was caught having sex with a 17-year-old Asian woman that was chained to the wall. They got him with prostitution. They forgot the whole chain to the wall. But this is directly tied to the Clintons. Like Bill Clinton used to fly in and out of Vermont. People didn't know that. This is his buddy Tom Covino. I was just at a select board meeting recently. In October of 2024, this guy came in front of the select board and he wanted to bring back his mentor, Bill Humphreys, to train him because he's not certified. He reminded the board he got out of law enforcement in 2003 as he's wearing a badge and a gun at this meeting. So Mr. Tom Covino, he's kind of famous for beating people up. He's written a lot of tickets in the last 21 years while impersonating a police officer. Jumps right back over to a gentleman named Daniel Banye, where we have a land grab, gun grab, Again, that's how our state was able to ban militias. I'm hijacking your show, SG. I appreciate it. But again, this is so big, so in depth. And again, there's their business owner, right? This is their handler. That's Merrill Bent. Merrill Bent, again, is that lawyer. She's the prosecutor up there in that area. Her husband works with the prosecutor down in this area. And if you dare stand up, they're going to come after you with all their lawyer and judge friends, which is where I am at right there. There's her husband, again, Jared. Pretty incredible people if you look into it. I didn't even know they could have a sealed autopsy, but Jared's first wife, again, died, really young. They're suspicious, but nobody can look because he's the state's attorney. So he sealed her autopsy. I have questions about all these things too. So here we have, again, mass murder in that same town, Paulette, Vermont, with Bill Humphreys. Not only the select board member, but once we got in there and started asking questions and stirring it up a little, they killed the select board member, his wife, their kid, the whole family. So we have mass murder going on. Whenever we talk about these things, it's pretty incredible stuff. We can throw in some immigrant abuses. One of the select board chair in Paulette, Vermont, Mr. Hewlett. Mr. Hewlett is one of these big farmers, big businesses. They bring in a bunch of immigrant help. We know them here as seasonal workers, migrant workers here in Vermont state. They come and they pick our apples. They do a lot of things. Great workers, illegal immigrants that are abused. Mr. Hewlett brings these people here. Again, he feeds them, he houses them, which comes out of their paycheck, and he also beats them. Select board member, no, the select board chair, Mr. Hewlett. After all of this, by the way, what happened is there was an argument over drugs. Mr. Hewlett has an artificial arm. He's got one arm from a farming incident. It's made out of titanium. So he ended up beating one of these immigrants with titanium. Their 14-year-old nephew jumped in to help out, and he got beat too. What about child labor laws? They bring their whole families up here. So, by the way, he ended up copying a deal. He took a plea deal. It's sealed. We'll never know what happened through CRJ. He went through the judge's business again. They signed off. Mr. Hewlett got away from it. And there you go. He accepts a diversion sentence for the assault on the migrant worker. And to put this into scale, SG, the Hewlett farm, it's called Deerfield Flats, but they provide all of the milk exclusively for Hannaford, which is a giant supermarket chain up here, Kroger, which is a giant supermarket chain up here, Ben & Jerry's ice cream, and Stewart's ice cream. Any one of those contracts is giant, but the Hewlett farms own them all exclusively. So anybody who's visiting those places, maybe you want to, ask them if, a little bit about their milk. They're also responsible for the largest agricultural fraud in Vermont history. If people want to go back and look at that, it's called watered down milk, the Hewlett farm. Pretty incredible stuff. Again, there's Mr. McChesney with his business partner, Mr. Or Robin Chestnut Tangerman. This is the House rep with Mr. McChesney, his business partner, McChesney Realty. There's Lee that we talked about. Again, Lee McChesney, when he was arrested, they got him for prostitution. They forgot the whole chain to the wall. Like that pisses me off. And this case, by the way, happened years and years ago. Mr. Kraft didn't die. Mr. McChesney did. But Mr. Kraft, I don't think he's been to court yet. They just slow walk it. And if they have to, they'll take a diversion sentence. Nobody knows anything. This is where they fly Bill Clinton in and out of Paulette, Vermont. Paulette. They have a private landing strip. Mr. McChesney over here, this guy, and Mr. Robin Chestnut Tangerman, they flew Bill Clinton in and out of Paulette, Vermont through the Hewlett Farm private airport. And we're looking at those airports and their flight logs, and I think there's more than just Bill being flown in and out. I'm just trying to put this into scale for you guys. Oh, there's a typical message from our friends. See what else we have here. Oh, this is where I get into trouble. I can't say this gentleman's name, SG. This is a picture of him. This is a House rep. I have to be careful here because I have a court order that says I can't legally say a name. and I absolutely cannot share pictures of them violating felony gun crime. So this is a Vermont House rep that passes gun control for other Vermonters while he's violating felony gun crimes himself. This gentleman has a 19-page criminal NCIC. He held his wife hostage with a shotgun, punched his sister in the face. He's got multiple batteries on law enforcement and women, right? And again, this picture was taken 5 days after he was convicted and fled the state of Illinois. So I had a problem. I believe in safe, responsible gun ownership. So I went down and reported this to my police chief, then the state police, then the town, then the commissioner of fish and wildlife, and then the attorney general, and the Moms Against Drunk Driving, and everybody you can imagine. That will get you a court order, again, a constitutional court order, right? That says I can't verbally say a name. I can't print pictures. Freedom of speech, freedom of the press, out the window. So they issued a warrant. Again, they issued an order first saying that I couldn't do that, and I did. I warned you guys. I'm concerned with these things. That led to the warrant, and then my arrest and forced injection, another assassination attempt for trying to tell you guys, right? So I want to make sure, again, this is still in we have jury draw in about 3 weeks to go through this. They have me now for violation of a abuse prevention order because I am abusing and harassing this man by telling you about his crimes, even though I'm running a network. That's against the law, according to them. There he is, aggravated assault, right? Against, just in case anybody questioned it, loaded shotgun with his wife. Again, here's a whole bunch of friend requests they send me. Doesn't matter, right? I can't say his name, but he can obviously do whatever he wants with impunity, like all these guys. Just real quick, I know we're jumping around a little bit, but this is the election audit. I did an election audit in 2018 where I can prove 60 to 70% fraud, trace it back at least to 1975. I was 5 years old. I released over 500 fraudulent names in a county of 5,500 people. That was just the A's and half the B's alphabetically. Massive fraud. So I sent it to everybody. I took it to my local town. I took it to the Board of Civil Authority. I sent it to the Secretary of State. So the Secretary of State sent me this letter. I think it's important for people to read. Once we started yelling about election fraud, again, this is back in 2018, 19, we made the banners. People were concerned. And again, Vermont Digger, they did a great article with Jim Condos, the Secretary of State. There he is right there, right? Where they printed it in the banner. He looked. There is no election fraud. They went through everything. First of all, we wouldn't want them to look at themselves, would we? We wouldn't want them to check themselves. But they can if they wanted to. Right here, they put it from the Secretary of State of Vermont. Again, Vermont relies strong on the partnership between the office of the town clerk, who are responsible for all the administration. Down here, first, the Secretary of State has no investigative or enforcement authority. They can't look at their own selves. They can't check themselves, even if they wanted to. But again, in regard to election law, they're administrative only. They're to provide guidance and teach your clerks and your local board how to do it. So our Secretary of State never looked at the 500 names plus that we gave him. And then when you get over to the meeting minutes of the locals, here it is. This is my town clerk. This is all my house members. This, again, not only sit on the board of select board, local board, but they're house members too. Mary Morrissey is a house rep in the big league. So they're upset with us that we looked and we questioned them. But right down here in the bottom, the Secretary of State practices are dictated by laws, and we fully compliance with those laws. Mary Morrissey and David Shaft, who also reiterated that the Secretary of State has publicly supported our work. That's true. After his office had an investigation of all the claims from those residents. Case closed. So he looked, even though back here he says he can't look. He sent this letter to my town. My town said, oh, no problem. We don't have to look. He looked. We couldn't get our elected officials to look at election fraud. Pretty incredible stuff. And all this is just my state's attorney manipulating and destroying evidence. And I can keep going here. We got PPP loans. We got fraudulent EIN numbers. This is the Bank of Bennington. This is where all of your officials, by the way, like my prosecutor, Erica Marthridge, she's the Bennington County State's attorney. She filed for a PPP loan. She doesn't qualify. That's a small business administration loan. It had nothing to do. She's your state's attorney. She got paid. The lights were on no matter what happened with COVID. She didn't even qualify, but she got a PPP loan. It's one of the biggest scandals in American history. Your lawyers, your politicians, they didn't know it was going to be tracked. They didn't know it was going to be public records, but now it is. So this is the Bank of Bennington. These guys are in a lot of trouble. They're the ones that, again, most of our illegal, fraudulent PPP loans out of Bennington came from this bank, with the exception, this guy over here on the end, Jason Morsey. It's another high-powered attorney. He represents the town. He's the town moderator. He sits on the board for the Bank of Bennington, but he got his fraudulent PPP loan from People's Bank, which is, again, they're just trying to cover it up and hide it. Matt Harrington, it runs a local chamber of commerce. He's embezzling about $18,000 a month from the good people and businesses of Bennington. They're his fraudulent PPP loan. He's triple dipping Matt. Got an extra 53 grand out of the federal government. Again, there you go, one of the largest frauds in American history. And I think these things are just starting to hit. And I've completely dominated and hijacked your show, SG. So I figure I bring you back in here and we can talk about some of this stuff. But this isn't just Vermont state. This is every state. And what I've discovered in regards to the human trafficking, that's the setup for the players. But what they're doing is they're using, again, the child advocacy centers and the courts, the methadone and Suboxone dealers. You know, what happens here, and I'm going to use that Sunrise Daycare as a great example. We have single moms that are addicted. Again, that was another setup. They're in charge of the drug trade as well. They get pregnant, they want to better their lives. So they go to Sunrise Daycare. You know, in rehab, they'll send you there, right? In the town, everybody talks about this is where you go. This person wants to better their lives. They're pregnant. They want to take care of their baby. So they go to Sunrise. And all that really is a screening center where they're looking for broke moms. And we got a bunch of single addicts in Vermont. That one's easy. We're all broke. So then they send in an advocate. Again, one of them I'll use is Amelia Silver. That's David Silver's wife, connected, you know, again, that Samuel H. Blackmer Law Library. So Amelia Silver comes in and she becomes your best friend. She'll buy your first bra. She'll make a car payment, a house payment. They do whatever they can for you. What they're really doing is screening for family. And if you have a broke mom with no family, well, then they send in the drug dealers. We've connected these. The drug dealers are working with your prosecutors, with, again, your lawyers, with the judges. They're the ones that are bringing it in because we got to keep mom and dad high to take your kids. So what happens when mom goes to jail, rehab, dies? They don't care. What happens to the kids? That's what you have to look at. And again, this is happening on such a prolific scale. It's incredible. Again, 1 in 4 families are affected by DCF. That's what we call it, the Department of Children and Families. It's CPS. And again, the horrors and all these connections from Allie Carter right down through. We're connecting this. And again, the 2 trafficking rings that I found, we're up to 3 now in Vermont, but the 2 lower ones in central Vermont and lower Vermont, we're making these connections through law enforcement, through the prosecutors and attorneys and judges. And I hope this terrifies everybody. We got to do something. Go ahead, SG. I'll let you talk on your own show.
Kevin, on that particular point, I wanted to double down a little bit for the audience and thank you for the phenomenal presentation. It's very well appreciated. We love detail on this particular platform. But with respect to the conflagration between the social services agencies and the courts and the law enforcement aspect of this themselves, can you help us maybe clarify with some on-the-ground examples there that you have, whatever you're able to talk about, help us to understand how that incestuous gear is turning inside this clock of pain?
Well, again, it's just like law enforcement. I've got a few sheriffs now that are reaching out to me in Vermont state. We have missing machine guns. We have a whole bunch of different stuff, but their big gripe is they're losing contracts. So again, this is rural America. We have a lot of mountains and a lot of country here in Vermont. So what happens is they have these big contracts, 200,000, 300,000 contracts, dollar contracts to patrol certain areas. And now we've got a sheriff calling going, man, I don't get how I'm losing my contracts to a sheriff on the other side of the state. Doesn't even make sense. Why are they? The reason is because if you're gonna traffic money or drugs or children, you need law enforcement. The same with the judge, the judicial system. Again, they're working all hand in hand. It's us against them. Again, if you're going to get mom and dad high, you're going to need law enforcement. You're obviously going to need prosecutors. And this is where we find ourselves in that judicial system. I think the J6 debacle, Cindy Young, Cindy Lou Who, we called her. It's my America's grandma. She's my hero. She stood firm, but I went down to Washington and I saw the court. I was down there with Michael Jaco and Lisa Shermerhorn and a few other people. We were watching the court. This is why you can't film in court. They don't want you to see what's going on in court. They lie, cheat, and steal. The rules, the law, the Constitution, they're awesome. I really love them. But they only apply to us, the little people. And what we see is the system morphs and changes. And when it comes to J6, not only we're learning about complicit judicial, our for-profit prison and police system, we're talking about inmate rights, human rights. I mean, these are big, big issues that are all being blown wide open. So you can't look at any one component. It's the criminal conspiracy. Used to be called the conspiracy theory. Theory no more. The evidence, just the stuff I rolled through tonight, SG. Is there enough to look? Is there enough to look? Can we look at this? Because we can't find any officials who will look at it. They're all related. They're all connected. Right now, I called the Attorney General in Vermont State. We removed the first one, TJ Donovan. I think that was a second sting. And then Charity Clark came in, right? That's our new state's attorney here. I've called Charity Clark, I'm not lying, 50 times in the last year. Can't get an appointment. They're never there. It's usually an answer machine. These people are gone. But I call them up and say, hey, I'm Kevin Hoyt. I'm a candidate for Vermont State Governor. They're trying to kill me, and I want to report capital crimes. Everything from the low end felony gun crimes to child trafficking involving DCF. Do you think I should get a call back? They cut my brake lines as a candidate for governor. If I was a black man, do you think that would have made the news? Because it didn't, again, they wouldn't even put out my press releases that I was running for governor. My governor ran from debate, and I know why. I know he watches my videos. He's one of my biggest fans. Phil, I wouldn't debate me either, right? So I think it's so complex and so overwhelming. They own everything. It comes down to checks and balances. The people have neither. The people have nowhere to go. We have no enforcement and no prosecution. And I'd love for somebody to prove me wrong. I've been trying to find one good official, one, for 8 years, and I haven't got a single call back. Is that, it's not a coincidence, right? These guys are all complicit. And again, they're not a real government. They're a corporate government. They're a fake government. I know we didn't elect them because I did the audit. Nobody's going to tell me different. They look like a government. They act like a government. They're tyrannical like a government. But until we stand up as an American people and say enough, that's what I'm saying. Right now, I'm coming on this program as a citizen. I'm Kevin Hoyt, regular guy. I'm not going to allow this anymore. No, not on my watch. And can you imagine if our kids have to do this? Oh my God. Hard enough now, SG. So I'm in. It's literally, I'm vested. There's no going back. It's me or them. And we're coming right down to the wire. I'm 3 weeks away of being, I think falsely incarcerated. The judge has already told me I cannot use the First Amendment. That's not a defense anymore. Freedom of speech. Again, the Supreme Court in Illinois has literally said, quote, the word for word, if you issue a no trespass order that says you cannot post to or about someone, that's unconstitutional on face value. That's putting a restriction, a prior restraint on my freedom of speech and, again, freedom of the press. This is why we have freedom of press. I can't use that. I'm not allowed to use that in court. So it should get interesting. You go into these courtrooms with your hands tied. And again, I'm a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a deer hunter. I should know what interrogatory means, but I do, because all the blessings in my life and all these, ifs, ands, and why me's, I know why now, because I was being prepped. I was sharpening my blade. I was getting ready for today, I think. And everybody watching this, if you're watching SGanon or Kevin Hoyt, then I think you were sent here. I think you're here for this. I think God sent me, SG, and I feel so unworthy when I say that. I'm a flawed man, a sinner. I'm so far from perfect, but I'm trying and I need help. Where's our countrymen? Where are the other Vermonters? Remember who you are. You're a Vermonter. This is our children. Like I don't know how to activate people, and it's risky when you stand up, so it's got to be voluntary. But we need to do something, America, or we're in trouble. And again, it's not just Vermont state, it's your state, it's every town, USA, and it's going to continue until we get off our ass and do it ourselves. So that's where I am right now. Come on back in and talk to me, buddy.
You know, Mr. Hoyt, I have to say that's an unbelievably powerful closing out for the show today. And I'm probably just going to go ahead and leave it there for the audience. But I would like to ask what the best way is for those Patriots watching this broadcast to reach out, rally behind you, and support you.
Yeah. Well, again, it's not supporting me as much as each other. All we have is each other. So that's also how I know we're going to be okay. If you go for Kevin Hoyt, that's Hoyt VT, as in Vermont. Vermont's in the house. Damn it, we're going to make a debt. Kevin Hoyt VT on Rumble or the Grassroots Warrior Network. And again, we're on Telegram and Facebook and all over. We're trying. We're blocked, banned, censored, and suppressed, but they're not going to stop me. They can't stop you either. So get involved, America. It's about participation. And now is the time. Thanks, SG.
Indeed, it is. For the audience out there, I hope you very much enjoyed an informative and painstakingly detailed conversation. You can navigate to the links in the description box below the video to learn more. This is SGanon. I'll be back with all of you again soon on the QNewsPatriot channel. God bless everyone. Stay safe. Bye-bye.